Good afternoon, everybody. We are here to do our May wrap up for content consumed May 16th through 31st. Before we begin our wrap up, we wanted to briefly mention our art show yesterday.
That's right.
We had our summer fundraiser at Double House Arts, and we would like to thank everybody for all of their support of our art collective. And Matt and I would also like to thank our teacher, Audrey from watercolor class, who really inspired and encouraged us to try to expand our horizons when we were taking her class in April, and all of the pieces that we made in your class sold in the art show. So thank you very much for all that you taught us.
And Audrey Parker in Portland, Maine is one of the instructors for the community services and activities for the city of Portland. So if you live around the area or anywhere else, check your newspaper or in your mail for events near you.
The first thing we wanted to talk about in our wrap up was the book to movie comparison of Remarkably Bright Creatures. The Netflix movie of Remarkably Bright Creatures was released on May 10th and stars Sally Field from Mrs. Doubtfire as Tova, who works as a janitor in an aquarium, and she befriends the octopus and also a boy named Cameron, who is kind of a loner, and he's new to town. He's in a band which ends up breaking up in the earlier part of the movie. He's a guitarist, and there's one scene that was not in the which was not in the book, that I really liked, where he performs in a bar at an open mic night and Tova goes to support his music, and I thought that was really sweet. What did you like about Remarkably Bright Creatures?
Well, that was really a realistic sequence, and it was very colorful.
Mm-hmm. So I have read the book twice. It is by Shelby Van Pelt, and I really think the people who directed to the movie did a really good job adapting the book to the screen. We gave it 8 out of 10 stars. And what made you gave it 8 out of 10?
I liked it because of the realistic creatures and how it fit along with the city setting.
The next thing we wanted to discuss is the TV episode we watched, which was season 2, episode 4 of Hannah Montana, Get Down and Steady Uddy Uddy. So, as we mentioned in our last video when we did our April wrap up, uh, we made notice of how we are grieving the loss of our college friend Stacey Harris, and one thing that I used to do together a lot with her when we were roommates in college was watch Hannah Montana. And this is one of my favorite episodes of Hannah Montana, because I really thought Hannah's song to learn the body parts was creative. Nearly tops the president it nearly tops the president's rap in the Ron Clark story in terms of remembering certain things, and I really liked that. What did you like about this Hannah Montana episode?
Well, you have a good point about how she brought it into her attention with the bones. Otherwise, she and her best friend could have been failing that class.
Right.
But Hannah Montana, when I first heard about this on Disney Channel, I was excited to hear about Miley Cyrus and hope she would fit in with the other in our generation, millennials, with the TV shows and cartoons we saw on Disney Channel. But then she became one of the most successful pop stars of her time. And my four favorite songs from Hannah Montana and Miley Cyrus are the theme song, Party in the USA, Wrecking Ball, and The Climb.
If you come to my play that I'm doing next weekend for Port Fringe, The Climb is one of the songs that's on the soundtrack that I put together for it.
Absolutely.
So for movies that we watched from May 16th to 31st, we wanted to first talk about Almost Heroes. This movie came out in 1998 during season 4 of Friends, and it stars Matthew Perry and the late Chris Farley. Chris Farley died of a heart attack not long after this movie was released, which was very sad. This was my first time ever seeing a movie with him in it. I have never seen any of his previous comedies from the early 90s, which we will be watching later this summer, which are called Coneheads and Tommy Boy, and he was well known before he made movies on Saturday Night Live. So, Almost Heroes is about the westward expansion and people traveling on the Oregon Trail. Matthew Perry plays an explorer named Leslie Edwards, and he really made this movie great. The other characters, including Chris Farley's character, were like super annoying, and I was enjoying the movie for the cinematography as they were traveling west, but like I just wasn't I was engaged in it for the most part because of the scenery, but I just thought people were not really respectful of Leslie Edwards and what he wanted to do, and that he was fighting a lot with Chris Farley's character, whose name I forgot to write down, by accident.
But the rest of the movie, besides what Gene was talking about, really features some good cinematography. It does, like she describe the people when they did go on the Oregon Trail all the way to the Pacific Ocean.
Do you remember playing a computer game?
I did play the computer game a little bit in elementary school during computer class.
I loved that game. It was my favorite game. The next movie we are discussing today is Never Been Kissed, which came out in 1998, again during season 4 of Friends. And this movie stars Drew Barrymore, who plays a character named Josie Geller. She is a journalist for the Chicago Sun-Times, and she goes undercover to get a deal of what high schoolers are currently dealing with. And her younger brother, who is played by David Arquette, Courtney Cox's ex-husband, is her younger brother, which is weird considering the fact that David Arquette is actually older than Drew Barrymore. But I think their brother and sister dynamic was really good. His character's name is Rob, and I really liked the scene at the prom where Josie like comes out and admits to the people that she's not really a teenager, and she basically stands up to the people who are being she stands up for the people who are being ostracized and bullied by the popular people, because she befriends one of the nerdy girls who is played by Lily Slobisky, and I really loved their friendship dynamic too.
Now, the Chicago Sun-Times in Chicago, you can't miss that if you are traveling on the river, traveling on a boat to get to Lake Michigan. And that was where Roger Ebert worked at the Times on movie reviews himself, even before he met Gene Siskel, who was doing Chicago Tribune.
The next thing I wanted to say about Never Been Kissed is that, so I remember I first saw this movie when it first came out in 1998, and I remember one particular scene I liked at that time was the scene between Josie and her teacher, Mr. Carlson, when they were on their date. And she says, you shouldn't, and he says to her, oh, you're really pretty. And she said, you shouldn't be saying that. You shouldn't say that because you're my you should be saying that because you're my teacher, or something like that. And he says, no, I shouldn't be saying that because of your teacher. And now that I have seen so many TV episodes and movies about student-teacher relationships, I just think that Josie probably should have not dated her teacher as part of her undercover assignment, because I think that when she came out at the prom about not actually being a teenager, that kind of ruined the relationship that she was starting to form that was romantic with her teacher. The next movie that we watched was Pee-wee's Big Adventure. This movie came out in 1985. It is a story about Pee-wee Herman, and he develops romantic feelings for this little woman who works at the bike shop. Her name is Dottie, who is played by E.G. Elizabeth Daly, who was a voice actress for Rugrats. I think she did the voices for
Yeah, it was Tommy Pickles.
Tommy Pickles, and who else was
I think it was just Tommy.
Oh, okay.
She also was one of the voices on the Powerpuff Girls, the voice of the black-haired one, Buttercup.
I haven't seen the Powerpuff Girls yet, but I've been meaning to watch it. So I really liked the romance between Dottie and Pee-wee, and then Pee-wee is approached by movie producers who want to make a movie about his life. In the movie within the movie, Morgan Fairchild, who plays Nora Bing on Friends, plays Dottie, and she was in a really small part in this movie, but if I could compare her part in this movie to Nora Bing, I kind of like her better as Dottie, because when she's Nora Bing, she's playing Chandler's mom, who is a romance writer, who's like always traveling on her book tours, and she's kind of sexually promiscuous, which I didn't really like. And in the episode where she appears in season 1, episode 11, the one with Mrs. Bing, Ross gets drunk and kisses her, which I hate. That reminds me of the scene in American Pie 2 where Fitch kisses Stifler's mom, and I just get really grossed out when I think about it. What did you think of Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
It was my first time seeing it, and this is one of the first films directed by Tim Burton. He blended his style of the dark side in a couple of scenes, with Pee-wee just having a big adventure because he's trying to find his bicycle that was stolen. Now, how many of you guys out there ever had your bicycle stolen? It's not a big deal, and your parents could buy another one. Well, for him, Pee-wee Herman, it was a big deal because it was a very special colorized one they would take with him around town, even when it's early in the morning after he would have a light breakfast after fixing something Rube Goldberg style when he wakes up in the morning.
The Rube Goldberg invention he made to make his breakfast was really cool. It made me think of the invention unit that we did in middle school, where we had to make our own invention, and some of the kids in my class made Rube Goldberg inventions. I don't remember what they were for, but for my invention, I created like a wipe that you wear on your wrist, which is basically a napkin that's like a wristwatch, and it was a pretty cool product. I wish that it had been picked up by an actual store, but that never happened.
And one more thing. If you ever watched Pee-wee's Playhouse, if you were a kid, if you had VHS, DVD, or even they have episodes streaming 24/7 on Shout Studios on YouTube, you could watch this and compare with Pee-wee's Big Adventure to see that character whom you would prefer in the real life, because where he would live is very colorful, almost 50s deco. But then when you get those animated characters coming to life, Cherry and Mr. Window, Conky the Robot, etc., then it would make you laugh more, and also a group of friends who loved him. So we say rest in peace, Paul Reubens.
The next movie that we watched is Scream 2, which is the second movie in the Scream franchise. We have different opinions of this movie. I preferred it to the first movie, because like in the reason why I didn't like the first movie was because I saw a video with a spoiler in it before, so I knew who the killer was. But with this movie, I went in totally blind, and I loved solving the mystery along with them. And I also liked Courtney Cox's highlights in her hair in this movie, and I'm thinking of getting my hair done similar when it comes to be the fall season. And I also liked how there was a theater performance that was kind of targeted by Ghostface, and that how he ended up killing somebody who was in the play. I thought that was a really cool aspect, because in this movie, Sydney and Randy are in college in a town that is not very far from where they went to high school, so they went to college in a different town to get away from Ghostface without realizing that Ghostface would actually follow there because there was a copycat killer. And the interesting thing about this movie is that at the beginning they're seeing a parody movie of Scream called Stab, and there's a series of killings where people who go to the movies get killed by Ghostface, and Will Smith's wife is the woman who gets killed in the beginning of the movie. I forget the name of the actor who gets killed, but why did you not like Scream 2 as much as the first movie?
There are a couple of reasons. The first reason was the one who got killed by this murderer was Sarah Michelle Gellar. And I just feel sorry for her. But also, I did not feel that making another Scream movie because of the same masked character who was killing people was really kind of amusing to me. It would just be the same kind of story to find out who was behind the mask and then end up being so anticlimactic to that person behind it at the very end.
So we're planning on continuing the series because our friend Sonia saw Scream 7 at the end of February when it was released in theaters. So we are trying to get well versed in the building up of Ghostface to see what he's going to be like. But I read a spoiler of Scream 7 before it came out that said that Gail, who is played by Courtney Cox, is the one who dies. And even in one of the next Scream movies that we're going to see, it's kind of like they're kind of self-aware of things and how cheesy the franchise is. So I'm interested to see how things are going to progress, but if we end up deciding we don't want to see Scream 7 because the plots are continuing to be anticlimactic, we might stop after Scream 4 at the end of August and not bother seeing the remaining 3 movies, including Scream 7, which was the main reason why we're watching the whole series in the first place. So for reading updates, Matt was going to talk about his books first.
Yeah, I've been reading The Cloud Cuckoo Land, but ever since we made the last video, I haven't really gone much far more. But there's a lot of timelines in this book with different chapters ranging from the early days to the future. And it really makes you think quite a lot, but it's kind of long, so.
Oh, wait, you didn't finish it yet?
Mm-mm.
Oh, I thought you were done. We'll just keep it then.
And then Life Hypothesis, I finished this book definitely. And at the very end, when Olive was with her date, after some trouble going on, what seemed like, and some confusion, and this would be another example of people falling in love with teacher. It ends up working out to their extent, and they go to a Chinese restaurant at the very end.
So I don't really like so there's a scene in this book where there are no seats left in the lecture hall, so Olive has to sit on Adam's lap. And when I think of that scene now, after rewatching the episodes where Ross dates his student Elizabeth, I can picture that happening and that revealing to the rest of the student body that Ross and Elizabeth were dating. So Kathleen and I read this in March for our student-teacher relationship serious issues in the media blog post. I gave it 3.5 stars. I don't remember exactly what she gave it. I think it was 4.5. And what did you give it?
I gave it 4.
Okay, so on average, what are
that would be 4.25.
Okay.
Okay, now you have some more books yourself?
I do. So the first book I wanted to talk about was Sawadika, American Girl by Daria Summers. This is by my mother-in-law's cousin. It's her debut novel, and it's set during World War II. The Vietnam War, and it's about a family being sent to Vietnam while their dad fights in the war, and I really love the relationship between Piper and her sister. I think their characters are very well developed. This is based on a real experience that Daria had growing up during the Vietnam War. So it's not a memoir, but it's a fiction book inspired by real life events, and I can't wait to read more from her. I gave this 4.5 stars. The next book is a reread for me, which is Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is the third book in the Brown Sisters trilogy, which is about 3 plus size sisters who have romantic relationships. They also have various disabilities. The main character in this book, Eve, has autism. Her sister has ADHD, and I can't remember which disability the first sister has in the first book. So this series is, the first book is called Get a Life, Chloe Brown, and the second book is called Take a Hint, Danny Brown. I highly recommend this series if you haven't read it yet, and Matt is going to be reading it next. So what is your progress in Cloud Cuckoo Land? Because I was confused and thought you were finished.
Okay, I still was on the page 300, roughly around here. I haven't gone to Wizard Inside the Whale yet.
Okay, never mind. You can continue reading it. I thought you were done and we were going to give it back to your mom on Monday, but when I'm done with the other books that I'm reading that I borrowed from her, that's when we'll give it back.
It's okay, Jean. Go on.
Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is my TBR for Pride Month, which I will be reading throughout the whole month of June. The first book I wanted to talk about is a reread called The Magic Fish. This is a graphic novel about a Asian boy coming out as gay to his mother. I first read this last year for Pride Month. Actually, I read it for Asian Readathon as Cindy Pham runs. And then it also counted towards my Pride Month TBR because I read it at the very end of May, leading into the beginning of June. And in my reread, I am on page 116. The next book I read was Melissa by Alex Guy. I will tell you what this is about. When people look at Melissa, they think they see a boy named George, but she knows she's not a boy. She knows she's a girl. Melissa thinks she'll have to keep this a secret forever. Then her teacher announces that their class play is going to be Charlotte's Web. Melissa really, really wants to play Charlotte, but the teacher says she can't even try out for the part because she's a boy. With the help of her best friend Kelly, Melissa comes up with a plan, not just so she can be Charlotte, but so that everyone can know who she is once and for all. So this is my first book by this author, Alex Guy, and I really loved the friendship dynamic in between Melissa and Kelly, and I really loved how Kelly encourages Melissa to be her own person and stand up and express herself when she auditions for the play to try out for the lead role of Charlotte. The next book that I just finished reading for the Pride Month TBR is Untamed by Glennon Doyle. Kathleen and I are reading this for the From Manhattan to Stars Hollow TBR, and obviously it was a Reese's book club pick from the year that it was released, which was 2009. No, 2020. So this came out during the year during COVID, and it's basically a self-help book for LGBTQ plus people. And I really like how this author interweaves poetry into her narrative, and it inspired me to write more poems. I gave this book 4.5 stars. The other book that I read for Pride Month TBR for the end of May, beginning of June, was Smash or Path, which is a new release by a new YA author named Bertie Sachs. It is a romance that is set in the sport of playing beach volleyball, and the two main characters meet while they're playing volleyball and fall in love. And I love the dynamic between I didn't write the main characters' names down, but I love their dynamic. Another book I read for Pride Month was After Hours at Dooryard Books, which is Cat Sebastian's new release from earlier this year. Starship came out in March, and I can't remember if this book came out before or after Starship. I think it was after. So this book is set in a bookstore during the Vietnam War. So this book complements nicely Sawadika, American Girl, because the bookstores uses a hotspot for people who are fighting, who are political activists who are against the Vietnam War. And I also, first of all, Cass Sebastian is one of my favorite LGBTQ plus authors. The booktuber who introduced me to her was Carrie at Carrie Can Reads, and I can link her most recent wrap up. I don't remember which video she reviews this book in, but I can just link her recent wrap up in the description, and then you guys can get tons of good recommendations from her. But I really liked the build up of the relationship between our main leads in this book, Nathaniel and Patrick. And then my rereads for the rest of Pride Month are going to be Falsettos, Fun Home, Something Wild and Something Wild and Wonderful. And I will be doing a separate video on my channel with my TBR for June.
And as we're filming this video, it's going to be the next weekend that Janine is going to be in a one-act play that is starring hers truly there.
Mm-hmm. So I am performing in the Port Fringe Festival next weekend. My show opens on Friday. It is called More Than Me, a one-act play about growing up with a disability. I will also include the ticket link to the description. You can also buy your tickets at the door in case you're not sure which day you're coming on or what time you're coming at. So I hope to see you at the show, and our next video will be out on July 10th at like 6 o'clock.
And here's a little hint. There may be a point where she might mention how we both met together.
Mm-hmm.
But that's all I'm going to really say for now. So have a good rest of the weekend and stay cool out there.